The HOA Karen stared at my wife's bald head like it was a crime scene. Then she smiled and picked up her phone. Police, she said loudly, so the neighbors could hear. I'd like to report a violation. My wife didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just lowered her eyes and held her scarf tighter around her neck. What that woman didn't know was that she was humiliating the wife of the chief of police. My wife, Linda, is 62 years old. She's a retired school librarian. The kind of woman who still writes thank you notes by hand. The kind who waves at every neighbor, even the ones who never wave back. 6 months ago, Linda was diagnosed with cancer. Chemotherapy took her hair slowly at first. Then all at once, one morning, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror and said, I don't want to watch it fall anymore. So I shaved her head, carefully, quietly, with my hands shaking the entire time. That afternoon, she stepped outside to water her roses. No wig, no scarf, just sunlight on her bare scalp. That's when Karen noticed. Her real name was Melissa, but everyone called her Karen behind her back. Mid-50s, perfect posture, clipboard always tucked under one arm like a badge of authority. She wore a bright pink blazer that day, the kind that demands attention. She stopped at the edge of our driveway and stared at Linda. Not with concern, not with curiosity, with disgust. Excuse me, she said sharply. Are you aware that personal appearance standards apply in this community? Linda blinked. I am sorry. Karen gestured at her head. It's unsettling. Children live here. I stepped outside when I heard voices. Is there a problem? I asked calmly. Karen ignored me. Residents are expected to maintain a presentable appearance, she said, raising her voice. You're violating HOA guidelines. Linda finally spoke. I have cancer. Karen paused. Then she smirked. That's not relevant to the rules. Neighbors started coming out. One woman froze mid-walk. A man across the street lowered his newspaper. Karen thrived on it. If you refuse to comply, she said loudly, I'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement. Linda's hands trembled. I stepped closer. Ma'am, this is unnecessary. Karen finally looked at me. And who are you? She asked. My husband, Linda said softly. Karen scoffed. Then control the situation. That's when she dialed 911. Right there, in front of everyone. My wife has cancer, I said, keeping my voice steady. She shaved her head for medical reasons. Karen covered the phone and leaned in. Rules are rules, she whispered. And I always win. The patrol car took 6 minutes. Longest 6 minutes of my life. Linda stared at the ground. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of every watching eye. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay. But I knew something worse was coming. Because when officers respond to a call, they don't know who's right yet. They just know someone complained. The car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. Karen straightened immediately. These people are violating HOA standards, she announced. The woman is deliberately disturbing the neighborhood. One officer looked confused. The other looked at Linda and frowned. Ma'am, he said gently, are you okay? Karen cut him off. She's bald by choice. It's inappropriate. The officer turned to me. Sir, may I ask your name? I hesitated, because once I said it, everything would change. I looked at my wife, then at the officer, and said, my name is James Walker. The officer's eyes widened, because he recognized it, and Karen was still smiling. Karen thought she was enforcing HOA rules. She had no idea she was about to challenge the chief of police, in front of his officers, and an entire street of witnesses. Officer Daniels swallowed hard. Chief, sir. Karen laughed. Oh, please, she said. Don't play along. The second officer pulled Daniels aside and whispered something. Karen's smile faded. I handed over my ID. She looked at it. Read it once. Then again. Her face drained of color. I wasn't aware, she stammered. This is unrelated. No, I said calmly. This is exactly related. The officers stood straighter. Linda finally looked up. Karen tried to recover. She's still violating community standards, she insisted weakly. Officer Daniels shook his head. There is no law, he said, against a cancer patient shaving her head. Karen snapped. She disturbed the peace. I looked at the neighbors. Did my wife disturb anyone? Silence. Then an elderly man spoke. She waters my plants when I'm sick. A woman added, she brings soup. Another said, she volunteers at the church. Karen backed up a step. Officer Daniels turned to Karen. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor. Karen's voice cracked. I didn't know. That, I said, is the problem. I requested an internal report. Not as the chief. As a husband. Karen was cited. Officially. Neighbors filmed everything. Linda reached for my hand. For the first time that day, she smiled. The HOA board removed Karen 2 weeks later. Linda received apology letters. Handwritten. From people who had stayed silent. She still goes outside without a wig. Because she's not ashamed. And neither am I. Karen tried to humiliate a cancer patient. Instead, she exposed herself. And lost everything. Karen thought the citation was the end of it. She thought she could quietly step back in her routine. And that the neighborhood would forget. She was wrong. Because when someone humiliates a cancer patient in public, the consequences don't end with a police report. They begin there. 3 days after the incident, I filed a formal complaint. Not as the chief of police. As a private citizen. That distinction mattered. I wanted this handled by the book. No shortcuts, no favors, no special treatment. The complaint included body cam footage, witness statements from 8 neighbors, Karen's recorded 911 call, HOA documents referencing appearance standards. Those documents were important because nowhere, not once, did they mention hair. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday evening. Attendance was higher than I'd ever seen. Not because of curiosity, because people were angry. Linda sat beside me, wigless, calm, unapologetic. Karen arrived 10 minutes late. Same pink blazer, same tight smile. But this time, no clipboard. When it was her turn to speak, Karen stood up and folded her hands. I was only doing my job, she said. I enforced the rules equally. No apology, no remorse. She looked directly at Linda. Personal struggles don't excuse violations. The room shifted. You could feel it. Linda stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She said, I survived chemotherapy. What I didn't expect was cruelty from my own neighbors. Silence. Then she sat down. Karen didn't look at her again. One board member, a retired nurse, spoke next. I worked with cancer patients for 30 years, she said. What happened was not enforcement. It was harassment. Another added, you endangered a resident by calling police unnecessarily. Karen interrupted. I didn't know who her husband was. That was her mistake. I stood. This has nothing to do with my position, I said evenly. It has everything to do with abuse of authority. The board requested Karen step outside. She argued. They insisted. The door closed behind her. 20 minutes later, the board returned. Karen was not with them. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Effective immediately, she said, Melissa is removed from her HOA position. Gasps. She is permanently barred from any leadership role in this community. More gasps. And the HOA will issue a public apology. Linda squeezed my hand. Karen never came back inside. The false police report charge moved forward. Karen accepted a plea deal. Mandatory community service. A formal apology letter. Probation. Court-ordered sensitivity training. She avoided jail, but not accountability. The judge looked directly at her and said, authority is not permission to humiliate. 2 weeks later, Linda received a letter. Typed. Formal. Signed by Karen. It read, I failed to see your humanity. Linda read it once, then placed it in a drawer. She didn't need it. Something changed after that. People spoke up more. HOA meetings were calmer. Kinda. Linda became a quiet symbol. Not of illness. Of strength. Children waved at her. Adults apologized. And Karen? She sold her house 6 months later. No goodbye party. No footwood. Just gone. One morning, Linda was back in the garden. Same roses. Same sunlight. Same bald head. A neighbor walked by and said, you look beautiful today. Linda smiled. And this time, it reached her eyes. Cancer took my wife's hair. But dignity? Strength? Respect? Those are never hers to lose. And anyone who tries to take them will always regret it.
The story's over, now let's get real. Imagine standing there on all that land, every inch legally yours. If you were in the owner's shoes, what would you do? Let them stay, sell the homes, or pull some other wild move? Drop your answer in the comments and let's see who's the boldest.